The US stock market closed with confident gains yesterday. Today, Wall Street is on the edge again. The risk-on mood dampened in the New York pre-market. The benchmark stock indexes traded higher in confidence on Thursday. The Dow Jones looked their strongest growth. The index closed 0.96% up, with the biggest intraday gain since August 7. The Nasdaq climbed by 0.81% and the S&P 500 rose by 0.84% to close at 4,505 points. Futures on the stock indexes shed 0.3 and 0.4% in the New York pre-market. The S&P 500 is expected to trade in the intraday Canada between 4,450 and 4,520 points. Yesterday, all significant economic data was much stronger than expected, thus dispelling recession fears. Besides, investors lay hopes for the Fed's pause in September and November for the simple reason that inflation remains sticky due to a rise in fuel prices. Retail sales in the United States expanded stronger than expected on the back of a surge in sales at gas stations. Initial unemployment claims increased to 220,000 from 217,000 a week ago. In another report, the Producer Price Index for final demand rose by 0.7% on months in August, beating the forecast of a 0.4% growth. The annual rate of factory inflation accelerated by 1.6%, faster than the expected 1.2% increase. The data confirmed the likelihood of a soft landing. Nevertheless, judging by the market response, market participants believe that the US Fed will hardly venture into another rate hike. Additionally, the buzz surrounding AI and related companies significantly boosted risk optimism. The successful IPO of ARM added to the excitement. The company was valued at almost $60 billion during its strong debut on the Nasdaq, with the chipmaker's shares soaring by almost 25% on the first trading day. US traded shares of the microchip developer ARM opened at $56.10 apiece, compared to the initial public offering price of $51. A vote of confidence for another companies planning to list their shares on the stock exchange. HP shares dropped by 1.8% after Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway sold about 5.5 million shares of the company, reducing the initial trading losses of 2.5%. Visa shares declined by more than 2% after the payment processing giant announced it was working with the Class B shareholders on a proposal to convert their shares to Class C or Class A. Moderna's shares jumped by 3.9% after European Regulatory Advisory Group recommended authorizing the company's updated vaccine. Futures for the S&P 500 and Dow went up on Friday as investors remained optimistic about a potential pause in the United States interest rate hikes. However, the early rise close to the opening of the market was negated by several factors. Companies producing cheap equipment and the car manufacturers were under pressure. Shares of Lam Research and other fell by nearly 2% after a leading global semiconductor manufacturer from Taiwan asked suppliers to delay shipments of a high-performance equipment for chip production. As for automakers, they were hit by a worker strike. Shares of Ford Motor and General Motors dropped by 1.2% and 1.9% respectively, after the Auto Industry Workers Union announced see multi-years strikes at the plants owned by the Detroit Big Three, including Chrysler owners Stellantis. The Auto Industry Workers Union began strikes at 3 plants early Friday morning in parallel, marking the most ambitious union action in the United States in decades. A strike by over 12,000 auto industry workers could slow down the U.S. economic growth if it drags on, even risking the first monthly net decline in wage employment in almost 3 years. Earlier, workers of Chevron's liquefied natural gas facilities in Australia, accounting for 5% of global shipments, declared a strike after failed negotiations on wage and working conditions. All this collectively paints a rather vague outlook and destabilizes market sentiments. The bright spot today continues to be ARM Holdings. ARM's shares spiked by more than 7% in the pre-market on Friday. The successful IPO prompted the grocery delivery app Instacart to raise its proposed price range for its IPO, aiming for a valuation of up to $10 billion. Furthermore, optimistic data on China's industrial production and retail sales in August bolstered market sentiment. US-listed shares of Alibaba, JD.com, PDD, and Xpeng increased between 0.1% and 1.6%. Importantly, the situation in the US today remains ambiguous. Wall Street is unlikely to extend a confident rally. The market seems to be anticipating a sell-off. The US dollar is flexing its muscles in the currency market. Despite a modest retracement, its index is trading at highs. Major currency pairs are displaying a muted dynamic and making faint attempts to gain ground, and the US dollar index is trading at 105.20.09% down. The intraday CAD for the instrument is seen between 104.70 and 105.40. After a highly volatile market yesterday, forex is trading sluggishly today. Traders are adjusting their decisions to prospects of further policy moves of major central banks. And yesterday, the ECB raised the refinancing rate to the record level of 5.5%, but dropped a hint that this rate hike could be the final one in the cycle of monetary tightening. The primary focus now is on the difference between the agendas of the ECB and the Federal Reserve, and the latest data points to sustained inflationary pressure. Although the market is almost skeptical of another rate hike in September and November, and the situation could still change. The Federal Reserve doesn't appear as definitive as the European Central Bank. Against this backdrop, even though the dollar index retreated from the Thursday's 6-month peak of 105.43, it remains on the track for its 9th consecutive weekly gain. The Canadian dollar is on the defensive today, and the USD CAD pays is trading at 1.3538 and 0.20% up. The loonie has lost all yesterday's gains, and the intraday CAD is determined between 1.3500 and 1.3575. The Canadian dollar is sensitive to volatile oil prices, and today crude oil retraced from the highest levels in 1.5 years. Brent crude futures shot 0.17% to trade at $93.50 a barrel, and WTI futures stayed flat. Yesterday, Brent crude topped out at the highest level in 10 months, and both benchmark grades have appreciated by almost 4% this week. Oil prices have been growing for 3 weeks in a row as the supply deficit caused by the production cuts in Saudi Arabia is combined with the optimism that the Chinese economy is finally reviving. China, the world's largest oil importer, reported that industrial production and retail sales in August expanded faster than expected. The crypto market is trading quietly today as assets are retracing downward. Bitcoin made a failed an attempt to settle above $26,750 and pulled back by 0.4%. Popular altcoins are trading mixed. Ethereum, Solana, Binance, Cardano, Ripple, Litecoin are wavering between the gains of 1.1 and dips of 0.8%. The market seems to have exhausted its optimism. The good thing is that cryptocurrencies are trading above the lows of September. The news from Europe could improve market sentiment. Deutsche Bank has entered into a partnership agreement with the Swiss cryptocurrency firm Taurus to provide cryptocurrency services for institutional clients. The partnership means that for the first time, Deutsche Bank will be able to store a limited amount of the cryptocurrencies for its clients, as well as tokenized versions of the traditional financial assets. Regarding the forecast range for Bitcoin, there has been little change since yesterday. If the asset can surpass 26,750, it may well rise to 27,100. The alternative scenario suggests a flat movement within the 26,200 and 26,500 range, where breaking below the lower boundary could send the token below $26,000. Make profits with the InstaForex. Your feedback is appreciated. Have a nice weekend. See you next week on the InstaForex TV channel.